Why is our house like this? Why can't you be like other mothers? Why did you even give birth to me to suffer in this poverty? Mama, please, stay away from me. You're embarrassing me with your poverty self.
Why is our house like this? Nkiru asked, her lips curled in a smirk that carried no innocence. Why can't you be like other mothers? Why did you even give birth to me? The words fell carelessly from her mouth, but each one landed like a sharp knife, cutting deep into the fragile heart of the woman who stood before her. Mama Nkiru did not shout. She did not raise her hand. She simply stood there, her fingers trembling slightly, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Only silence, only pain. And when Nkiru turned and walked away with a dismissive hiss, Mama Nkiru slowly wiped the tears that had escaped, making sure no one saw the heartbreak she carried like a burden too heavy to share. Whenever there were events, weddings, or gatherings in the village, Mama Nkiru would carefully bring out her best wrapper, the one she had worn for years but treasured like gold. She would dress slowly, smoothing every crease, adjusting her blouse, hoping, just hoping, that this time her daughter would walk beside her. And then she would follow behind Nkiru with quiet pride in her tired eyes. But Nkiru always walked ahead, her steps quick, her chin lifted high, as though she were running from something or someone, pretending she did not know the woman behind her. And if Mama Nkiru dared to come close, even just to stand beside her, Nkiru would snap sharply, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "Mama, please, stay away from me. You are embarrassing me." People would turn. Some would exchange knowing glances. Some would whisper behind their hands. Some would look at the older woman with pity that burned more than insult. And Mama Nkiru? She would pause, her smile trembling, her eyes glistening, then quietly take a step back, forcing a weak smile that never reached her eyes, as though she had already accepted her place in her own daughter's life. Hi besties, before we continue with this emotional story, I just want to take a moment to appreciate every single one of you. Truly, from the depth of my heart, I love you all and I appreciate your views, your likes, your comments, because this is what keeps this channel going. This is what gives these stories life. Thank you for being here with me. And if you're yet to subscribe, please kindly do so. I promise to always make your stay here worth it. Now, come with me as I take you through the very beginning of this story. Let's find out how karma finally paid Nkiru for treating her poor mother so badly.
Nkiru was born into hardship. Not the kind people hear about and casually shake their heads in pity, no. This was the kind of poverty that sat deep inside the bones, the kind that followed you like a stubborn shadow, refusing to leave no matter how fast you tried to run. Her father died when she was still very young, too young to understand what death truly meant, but old enough to notice that the laughter in their home had vanished, replaced by a silence that felt heavy, like something was missing and would never return. From that moment, her mother, Mama Nkiru, became everything overnight. A mother, a father, a provider, a shield. Life did not give her time to mourn. It pushed her forward, forcing her to survive. She woke up before the sun had the chance to rise. Tying her wrapper tightly around her waist, she stepped out into the cold mornings, and she returned only after the sun had gone to sleep, her body weak, her feet aching, but her heart still holding on. She farmed under the harsh heat, fetched water with tired arms, took on any odd job she could find just to make sure there was something, anything for her child to eat. Many nights she went to bed hungry, pretending she had already eaten, just so Nkiru would not feel guilty. "Mama, aren't you going to eat?" little Nkiru would ask, her innocent eyes wide. And Mama Nkiru would smile softly, brushing her hair. "I have eaten, my child. You eat, you need it more." Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, when the world was asleep and the only sound was the whisker of the wind, Mama Nkiru would sit beside her daughter and watch her sleep peacefully, her small chest rising and falling without a care in the world. She would gently stroke her hair and whisper with a trembling voice, "My child, you will not suffer like me. I will do everything to make sure of that." But destiny
destiny had a cruel sense of humor. As Nkiru grew, something inside her began to change, something cold, something hard. Instead of gratitude, resentment took root. She began to notice the difference between her life and that of other children. Children who wore fine clothes, children who ate good food, children who lived in better homes. And slowly, quietly, she started to blame the one person who had given up everything for her. At first, it was subtle. Nkiru, come and help me fetch water, Mama Nkiru would call, her voice tired but gentle. I'm tired, Nkiru would ukai, not even looking at her. She rolled her eyes more often, ignored instructions, hissed under her breath. But it did not stop there. It grew. The frustration inside her found its voice. Why is our house like this? She snapped one day, looking around with disgust. Mama Nkiru froze. Why can't you be like other mothers? Nkiru continued, her tone sharp, her eyes filled with anger that did not match her age. Why did you even give birth to me? That one cut the deepest. Each word was a knife, piercing through Mama Nkiru's heart again and again. She stood there, speechless, her lips trembling slightly, as if searching for the right words, but none came. She did not shout, she did not curse, she did not raise her hand. Instead, she swallowed the pain, forcing it down into a place where no one could see, and turned away quietly. Later, when Nkiru was not looking, she wiped her tears quickly, as though even her sorrow did not deserve to be seen.
Whenever there were events, weddings, or gatherings, Mama Nkiru would bring out her best wrapper, the one she had worn for years but preserved with so much care, as though it carried her dignity inside its fading fabric. She would dress slowly, adjusting it around her waist, smoothing every crease with hopeful hands, then glance at her reflection for a brief second before stepping out, her heart quietly excited. Nkiru, wait for me, she would call softly, hurrying behind her daughter. But Nkiru never waited. She walked far ahead, her steps quick, her head held high, as though she was afraid the world might connect her to the woman behind her. She pretended not to know her, not to see her, not to belong to her. And if Mama Nkiru, with all the love in her heart, dared to close the distance and stand beside her, Nkiru would snap sharply, her voice loud and cutting. Mama, please, stay away from me. You're embarrassing me. The words would echo, drawing attention. People would turn, their conversations pausing mid-sentence. Some would whisper behind their hands, is that not her mother? Others would shake their heads in quiet disappointment, while a few looked at Mama Nkiru with deep, painful pity. And Mama Nkiru, she would stop in her tracks, her smile trembling as it fought to stay on her face, her eyes already shining with unshed tears. It's okay, I will stand here, she would murmur to no one in particular, taking a slow step back, her pride folding quietly into silence as she forced a smile that never reached her eyes. Then one day, like a sudden light breaking through darkness, an opportunity came. Nkiru got admission to study in the city. It was nothing short of a miracle, a door out of poverty, a chance Mama Nkiru had prayed for countless nights. That night, Mama Nkiru did not sleep. She sat alone in her small house, her eyes moving from one corner to another, taking in everything she owned. Her wrappers, neatly folded but worn. Her cooking pots, old but still strong. Her little savings, barely enough to survive. She let out a slow breath, her decision already made. My daughter must go, she whispered to herself. One by one, she gathered her belongings, each item holding a piece of her life, her struggle, her memories. She sold them all, even the wrapper her late husband had given her, the one she had sworn never to part with. When she finally placed the money into Nkiru's hands, her fingers trembled slightly, not from regret, but from the weight of all she had given up. My daughter, she said gently, her voice thick with emotion, be careful, stay away from trouble, and remember, you have a mother who loves you. Nkiru looked at the money, then at her mother, her face unreadable. There was no smile, no warmth, no gratitude, not even a simple thank you. Instead, she let out a faint hiss of annoyance, grabbed the money without a word, and turned away. I'll be fine, she said coldly, already walking off. And just like that, she left. Mama Nkiru stood there,
watching her daughter disappear, her chest tightening with a pain she could not hold back. That day, she cried like her heart had been torn open, her body shaking with silent sobs. But even in her pain, even in her loneliness, she lifted her hands slowly to the sky, her voice breaking as she whispered, "God, protect my child." The city changed in Nkiru, or maybe it simply revealed who she had always been. From the very moment she arrived, she made a silent vow to herself, "I will never be poor again." And she chased that vow with everything she had. She found her way into the circle of wealthy girls who lived big, who spoke loudly, who spent money like it had no end, girls who turned their noses at anything that smelled like struggle. "You have to upgrade yourself," one of them, Ifunaya, told her with a smirk. "Nobody respects a poor girl in this city." Nkiru nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I understand," she replied. And truly, she did. She fit right in, almost too perfectly. She built a life that looked beautiful on the outside, but was hollow within. Expensive clothes she could not afford filled her wardrobe, each one a lie stitched together with desperation. She moved from one man to another, smiling sweetly, saying the right words, collecting money to sustain a lifestyle she had no real means to maintain. "Nkiru, you're living your best life," her friends would laugh, and she would laugh louder, tossing her hair, walking with pride as though she had finally become who she was meant to be. But beneath it all, she buried her past completely, covering it with layers of denial. To her, poverty was not just a condition. It was a disease, something shameful, something to be hidden at all costs. And her mother, Mama Nkiru, became a secret, one she never wanted anyone to discover. Back home, far away from the noise and lights of the city, Mama Nkiru grew weaker with each passing day. Her body, once strong enough to carry burdens beyond its limit, began to fail her slowly. Her steps became slower, her hands trembled more, her breath grew shorter. But her love never weakened. Every morning, she would drag a small stool outside and sit by the roadside, her eyes fixed on the path that led out of the village, as though she expected her daughter to appear at any moment. "Maybe today," she would whisper, hope flickering faintly in her tired eyes. Whenever she saw someone preparing to travel to the city, she would struggle to her feet and call out to them, her voice thin but desperate. "Please, if you see my daughter Nkiru, tell her I miss her. Tell her I am getting weaker." She would pause, swallowing the pain in her throat. "But I am still praying for her." Some of them felt pity and agreed. Some even found Nkiru in the city. "Your mother sent a message," one man said to her one afternoon, his tone gentle. "She said she misses you, that she is not strong anymore." Nkiru's expression changed instantly, her face hardening like stone. "I don't have a mother," she replied, flatly. The man blinked, confused. "But I said I don't have a mother," she repeated, sharper this time, turning away as if the conversation disgusted her. And just like that, with a few careless words, she erased the woman who had given her life, as though she had never existed at all. Then came Chidi, a good man in every sense of the word, kind in his speech, responsible in his actions, and loving in a way that felt steady and real. The kind of man any mother would pray for her daughter to find. The first time he saw Nkiru, something in him settled. "That is the woman I want," he told his friend quietly, his eyes fixed on her as she laughed, her beauty drawing attention from every corner. It didn't take long before he approached her, respectful, sincere. "Nkiru, I would like to know you better," he said one evening, his voice calm. And Nkiru, smiling that practiced smile of hers, allowed him in. Their relationship grew quickly, built on sweet words, shared moments, and promises of a future together. Until one day, Chidi looked at her with seriousness in his eyes and said, I want to marry you. Nkiru's heart skipped, not from surprise, but from calculation. This was the life she wanted. This was the security she had been chasing. But then he added, gently, I will need to meet your parents. It is the right thing to do. There was no pause, no hesitation, no flicker of guilt. I'm an orphan, she said smoothly, her face calm, her voice steady. They're long dead. Chidi's expression softened instantly, sympathy replacing expectation. I'm so sorry, he said, reaching for her hand. And just like that, another lie was born. They got married, a beautiful wedding that people talked about for days. Music filled the air, laughter echoed through the halls, guests smiled, cameras flashed, and Nkiru stood there glowing like a queen, dressed in elegance, admired by all. But in the midst of all the celebrations, something was missing. No mother, no blessing from home, no elderly woman standing proudly beside her daughter. Only a quiet, invisible absence, and the heavy silence of a woman who was still alive, somewhere far away, still waiting. Years passed like a fading dream. And back in the village, Mama Nkiru's life slowly came to an end. She died quietly, without noise, without attention. Not just from sickness, no, but from something deeper. From loneliness that wrapped around her like a cold blanket. From heartbreak that never healed. From endless waiting for a daughter who never came back. On the day she died, there was no child by her side. No hand to hold. No voice to call her Mama one last time. The villagers gathered, their faces heavy with sadness, not just for her death, but for the life she had lived. This woman suffered, one of them said, shaking his head. They contributed money among themselves, small amounts that came together to give her a burial. Strangers carried her body, strangers dug her grave, strangers wept quietly as they laid her to rest. And as the soil covered her, sealing her forever beneath the earth, one truth remained painfully clear. The daughter she gave everything for was not there. The daughter she waited for never came.
Life smiled at Nkiru. For the first time in her life, everything seemed to fall perfectly into place. She had a good job, won a blood-steady income and respect. She lived in a beautiful home, furnished with things she once only admired from afar. Her life was comfortable, soft, and far removed from the harsh reality she had left behind. Sometimes she would stand in front of her mirror, adjusting her clothes, admiring herself with a satisfied smile. See my life now, she would say softly, pride swelling in her chest. Then she had children. 2 beautiful girls, as radiant as the morning sun, their laughter filling the house with warmth. The day she held her first daughter, tears slipped down her cheeks, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is my joy," she whispered, kissing the child gently. When the second came, her happiness only grew. "My home is complete," she told Chidi, smiling in a way that seemed almost genuine, as though she had finally found something real to hold on to. In those early days, everything felt perfect. The house was alive with laughter, tiny footsteps running across the floor, little voices calling out, "Mommy, Mommy!" And Nkiru would respond with a smile, believing she had built the life she always dreamed of. But slowly, quietly, something began to change. It started with small things easy to ignore. A torn here, an attitude there. Then it grew. Her daughters began to speak to her in ways that made her pause. Confused at first, then unsettled. "Mommy, you are annoying," one of them snapped one afternoon, folding her arms with a frown far too bold for her age. Nkiru blinked in surprise. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice tightening. "Why are you like this?" the other added, rolling her eyes. "You don't know anything." The words hit her unexpectedly, sharp and disrespectful. She laughed it off at first, thinking it was childish behavior, something they would outgrow. "Don't talk to me like that," she warned lightly. But it didn't stop. It only got worse.
They mocked her openly, laughed at her instructions, ignored her completely. In public, they embarrassed her without shame. "Mommy, you don't even dress well," one would say loudly, drawing attention. "You're always talking too much," the other would add, giggling. Nkiru's smile would freeze on her face, her heart tightening with a feeling she could not explain. Chidi noticed, and he tried. He tried everything. "You will not speak to your mother like that," he shouted one evening, his voice echoing through the house as the girls stood before him, unbothered. He punished them, took away privileges, scolded them repeatedly. "She is your mother. You must respect her," he insisted, his frustration growing. But nothing worked. The more he tried, the worse it seemed to become. It was as if his words passed through them without meaning, as if something deeper had taken hold, something unseen, something that refused to be corrected. And in that home, beneath the comfort, beneath the beauty, beneath the laughter that once lived there, something dark quietly settled, growing stronger with each passing day.
One quiet afternoon, the house was unusually still. No laughter, no shouting, no footsteps running through the rooms. Nkiru sat alone, her body sinking into the chair as though the weight of something unseen had finally found her. No noise, no distractions, just her thoughts. And for the first time in years, there was nowhere to run. She stared blankly ahead, her fingers tightening slowly against each other as a question rose from deep within her, one she had buried for so long. "Where did I go wrong?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, as if afraid of the answer. And then it came, suddenly, heavily, like a flood breaking through a broken wall. Her mother's face, her tired eyes, her gentle voice. "My child." The memories rushed in, one after another, refusing to be pushed away. Her mother standing quietly, enduring her insults. Her mother calling after her with love she never returned. Her mother wiping silent tears when she thought no one was watching. "Why is our house like this?" Nkiru heard her own voice echo in her head, sharp and cruel. "Why can't you be like other mothers? Why did you even give birth to me?" She flinched, as though the words had just been spoken again. Every insult she had ever said, every moment she had turned her back, every time she looked at that woman and chose to see nothing. "I don't have a mother," she remembered saying, her chest tightening painfully. And in that moment, it all crashed down on her. Nkiru broke. Not the kind of crying that comes and goes, no. This was different. This was deep, raw, painful. She bent forward, clutching her chest as sobs tore out of her uncontrollably. "Mama," she cried, her voice breaking into pieces. "Mama, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Tears streamed down her face endlessly, her body shaking with regret that came far too late. It was the kind of cry that carried years of guilt, years of denial, years of truth finally rising to the surface. And it did not stop. That evening, when Chidi returned from work, he found her sitting there, her eyes swollen, her face pale, her entire being changed. "Nkiru, what happened?" he asked, concern filling his voice as he rushed to her side. She looked up at him slowly, her lips trembling. "I lied to you," she said, her voice weak but clear. Chidi frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Nkiru swallowed hard, her hands shaking as she spoke. "I'm not an orphan. My mother is alive." Silence fell between them instantly, heavy, thick, uncomfortable. She continued, her voice cracking with every word. "I lied. I denied her. I treated her badly. I abandoned her. Tears filled her eyes again. Everything I told you, it was all a lie. Chidi said nothing. He simply stared at her, his expression unreadable, but the disappointment in his eyes was impossible to hide. The room felt colder, stiller, the weight of her confession hanging heavily in the air. He exhaled slowly, running his hand through his hair, the heart settling quietly within him. But when he finally spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, and firm. We need to go back. They traveled as a family, the journey long and heavy with unspoken thoughts. Nkiru sat quietly, her hands clenched together, her heart beating faster than it should. She was nervous, restless, hopeful. Her eyes kept shifting, her mind racing ahead of her. What if she forgives me, she whispered under her breath, almost like a prayer she was afraid would not be answered. Chidi glanced at her briefly, but said nothing, while the children sat in silence, sensing the unusual tension. As they got closer, something began to feel wrong. The air itself felt different, too quiet, too still, the kind of silence that carried something deeper than peace. Nkiru stepped down when they arrived, her feet suddenly heavy, her chest tightening with every step she took. Her eyes searched around quickly, as if expecting to see a familiar figure rush toward her. "Mama," she called softly, her voice trembling, but there was no answer, just silence. Then a villager passing by stopped when he saw her. He looked at her for a moment, his face hardening with irritation. "So, you finally remembered you have a mother," he said, his tone sharp, filled with years of unspoken judgment. Nkiru froze. "Where is she?" she asked quickly, her voice shaking, desperation creeping in. The man let out a dry laugh, one that carried no humor. Without another word, he lifted his hand and pointed. "That is where she lives now." Nkiru followed his finger slowly, and then she saw it. Her grave. Everything around her seemed to disappear. The ground beneath her feet felt like it had been pulled away. "No," she whispered, her lips trembling violently. "No, no, no." Her legs gave way and she collapsed to the ground, the reality crashing into her all at once. Then the scream came, loud, raw, piercing, the kind of scream that carried years of regret, years of denial, years of love she never gave. It shook the air, echoing through the silence like a cry too heavy to be contained. "Mama!" she cried out, her voice breaking as she crawled toward the grave, her hands trembling as they touched the earth that covered the woman she had rejected. Tears poured endlessly, her body shaking violently as she cried without restraint, without reservation. "I'm sorry, Mama, I'm sorry, please forgive me, please," she begged, her voice growing weaker with each word. She cried until her throat burned, until her voice faded into nothing, until no sound could come out anymore. She cried until her strength left her body completely, collapsing there, broken, empty, and alone. But it was too late, far too late. The villagers gathered slowly, drawn by the sound of her cries, their faces lined with memories that refused to fade. They stood around her in silence, watching as she wept beside the grave, her hands clutching the earth as though she could pull her mother back from it. But no one moved to comfort her. No one stepped forward to lift her up. No one said, "It's okay," because they remembered. They remembered Mama Nkiru sitting by the roadside, her weak body bent with age and suffering, her eyes fixed on the path, waiting for a daughter who never came. They remembered her quiet tears, the way she wiped them quickly whenever someone approached, pretending to be strong when she was already breaking. They remembered her voice, soft and hopeful. "If you see my daughter, tell her I miss her." They remembered her pain, her loneliness, her love that was never returned. And now, as Nikiru cried and begged beside the grave, their hearts did not move. One elderly woman shook her head slowly and muttered, "She is crying now, but where was she when her mother was alive?" Another added quietly, "Too late. It is too late." And that was the truth Nikiru could not escape. She had come back, but not in time. She returned to the city with her family, but she did not return the same. Something had followed her home, something she could not see but could feel. Karma. It settled quietly into her life, into her home, into her peace, and from that moment, nothing remained. Her children became worse, colder, harsher. The little respect that once flickered in their eyes disappeared completely. And when they finally learned the truth about how she had treated her own mother, whatever was left of their regard for her died instantly. "Mommy, you are wicked," one of them said one evening, her voice filled with a harshness that cut deep. Nikiru froze, her heart tightening painfully. "How can you treat your own mother like that?" the other added, shaking her head with open disgust. "You don't deserve respect." Those words, they echoed loudly in her ears, repeating over and over again, refusing to fade. Because she had heard them before, not from others, but from herself. Her own past had come back to life, standing right in front of her, speaking to her through the voices of her children. And this time, there was no escape. Chidi tried. He truly did. He refused to give up on his home, on his wife, on the children who had suddenly become strangers in their own house. He would sit them down, his voice firm but controlled. "You cannot speak to your mother like that. It is wrong." He would try again and again, speaking calmly one moment, raising his voice the next, hoping discipline would fix what seemed broken. "Respect your mother," he would insist, looking into their eyes, searching for understanding that never came. But some things run deeper than discipline. Some wounds are not corrected by punishment. Some lessons are not taught by words. They are taught by life itself. And slowly, painfully, the truth settled over their home like a heavy cloud that refused to leave. Nkiru had everything she once thought would make her happy. A good life, a comfortable home, a family. But peace, gone. Respect, gone. Love, gone. Every day, she lived with a silence that screamed louder than words, a loneliness that sat beside her even in a full house. And worse than all of it, she lived with a memory she could never erase, the memory of a mother who loved her unconditionally, a mother she insulted, rejected, and denied, a mother she watched suffer and never turned back for. And now, that love she once pushed away had become the very thing she could never reach again, a grave she could never apologize to, a voice she could never hear again. Only silence, only regret, and the painful truth that life does not always wait for forgiveness. Sometimes, the people we look down on are the ones holding our entire world together. And when they are gone, no amount of tears, no amount of regret can ever bring them back.